Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Welcome to the fourth in a series of Redux reviews, where I revisit my early videos that were recorded a few years ago on substandard equipment and with less in the way of production values. The aim of these reviews is to enable me to tighten and expand the writing, fleshing it out with further insight where appropriate, and to produce something of superior video and audio quality to the original. Today's review is S. Petersen's Field Guide to Lovecraftian Horrors for any edition of Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in 2016, S. Petersen's Field Guide to Lovecraftian Horrors is a 128-page book that was released as part of Chaosium's historically troubled Call of Cthulhu 7th edition Kickstarter as a stretch goal. The book is an amalgamation of the original S. Petersen's Field Guide to Cthulhu Monsters and S. Petersen's Guide to Creatures of the Dreamlands. The original idea was to reprint the two books separately, but during the process of delivering these, it was decided that they would combine the original books into one new tome, a reimagined book resplendent with new art. It is available in both soft and hardback versions. Additionally, it was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards in 2017. Right, to the cover. Here we have an absolutely superb piece by Loic Musi, with a menacing-looking starspawn of Cthulhu leering at us. Onto the inside. The first thing I was drawn to is something that doesn't really sit well with me. It's a foreword by Professor Emeritus Eliphas Cordviv Falworth, where he discusses the use of this book in the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Now, I enjoy the immersion in the game, but this breaking of the fourth wall is something that doesn't feel like it fits. After this, we have a step-by-step guide to identifying monsters of the mythos, which is fun to use and perhaps surprisingly usually correct. The book is split into 2 parts, with the first 65 pages covering the Cthulhu mythos monsters and the remaining pages covering the denizens of the Dreamlands. Okay, firstly the Cthulhu part. One thing of immediate note is the artwork in this section. It was commissioned by Chaosium to be done by the artist of Edition Sans Détour, the French company that produced their own licensed version of 7th edition, and my word was it a great decision. It is simply fantastic, with the use of muted tones and occasional splashes of red, green and orange used to effect. Never have a Bayaki, Dark Young of Shub-Niggurath, Shantak or a Dimensional Shambler looked as good as they do here, and for me, it gives a completely different otherworldly alien feel to these well-established horrors, some of them taking on odd insectoid features, while others have strange, mildly disturbing symmetries, which is definitely a good thing. Each entry in the book contains a guide to what is known about the horror from the Lovecraftian universe, taking in their habitat, distribution, life and habits, and the methods of distinguishing them. Also, most of them have a size comparison when compared to the average hapless gun-toting investigator. There are many familiar faces here: Nyarlathotep, Shub-Niggurath, Azathoth, along with the supporting cast of the likes of Formless Spawns, Fungi from Yuggoth and Hounds of Tindalos. But sadly, there were ones that are criminally left out. We have no Yig, no Father Dagon or Mother Hydra, no Ygolnak, no Nodens, and perhaps the biggest omission of all being the big guy himself, Great Cthulhu. I feel it was a misstep to leave out huge iconic entities like these. Despite these issues though, the guide is actually a fairly pleasant, informative read. Okay, so on to the second bit, the Dreamlands. We have another section written by our earlier esteemed professor, and a similar step-by-step guide to identifying monsters of the Dreamlands, which again is pretty good. There's an issue here though. For me, the Dreamlands always played a very distant second fiddle to what you may consider vanilla Call of Cthulhu. The fantastical setting just didn't interest me anywhere near as much as the regular game, and besides, if I ever wanted a fantastical setting, I had plenty of other more dedicated options, such as RuneQuest, Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons, that could scratch that particular itch. It goes through 50 pages of Dreamlands denizens, from Aboth right the way through to Zug, but there is one thing of note here, but for a different reason: the art. Some of it is just ever so slightly too cartoonish for my liking when compared to the horrors of the first part of the book. At the end of the monster section we have a really well done size comparison chart which actually tries to include Azathoth and strangely Cthulhu, who makes an appearance despite not being included earlier. S. Petersen's Field Guide to Lovecraftian Horrors is a book that I would still consider nice to have but not must have. The reimagined art in the first section is just wonderful, but the many omissions make it feel rather too incomplete in my eyes. The book contains some nice fluff, but not enough crunch. Originally, I gave this a score of 6 out of 10, which is something I've reflected on since. At the time, I didn't consider that the bright, almost cartoonish art of the Dreamlands was that way simply because that is the nature of the Dreamlands, and as such, the score was perhaps a little unfair. I still believe that the Dreamlands section is too long, and if they were to cut it back a bit to make way for many big players left out of the Cthulhu Mythos section, it would have been a much more worthy purchase. However, with time and reflection, it is a pretty good product. So I'm going to revise my original score to a more respectable 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I've put some links below. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.